And welcome to the Sound Off Show. We're certainly living in interesting times, challenging times, and I hope you're all hanging in there because things will definitely get better. We have to have faith, believe in ourselves, believe in our country and our state, and our God and faith and so forth. And we'll get through this and we'll come out on the other side even better than before. That's what when I first became aware of this COVID-19 dilemma, I got to thinking about it and I said to myself, there has to be something good that will come out of this in the long run. And I believe it will. So just hang in there, folks. I would like to, before I introduce my guest, I would like to share something with you that I put together on my computer before I came to the studio. Former U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt said, quote, "We have but one flag. We must also learn one language, and that language is English," unquote. Now, U.S. Senator James Inhofe has a bill in Congress. It's S for Senate, 678, and it's the English Language Unity Act. I'm hoping, maybe against hope, but I'm hoping that there are enough people in Congress who understand the importance of having one language in our country. That is the language of the country. Because a common language unifies us as a people. 32 states have already made English their official language. Vermont needs to do the same. I hope our legislators are listening. In the classrooms across America, English immersion has been replaced with bilingual education. Now, people who come to this country from other nations must learn English so that they can become gainfully employed, economically self-sufficient, and not a burden on Vermont workers. They can be empowered. How do you feel when you make a phone call to a business and you're asked to press 1 for English and 2 for Spanish? In America? Somebody asked me that the other day and I said, I don't like it. Do you know that each year the federal government spends more than $2 billion of your hard-earned tax dollars to print driver's license exams, welfare forms, and election ballots in multiple languages? Anywhere between 20 and 30 languages in some cases. That's a huge expense to us. This must stop. According to a recent poll, 81% of Americans have voiced their support for legislation that would make English the official language at the federal government level. We don't change our customs, our national culture, our values, and our beliefs because people come to our country from other nations. They must assimilate into our American culture. It's not that we don't want people coming here, but we want them to respect and assimilate. An English language bill has also been introduced into the Vermont legislature. So please urge your Vermont state representatives and senators to support the English language bill so that Vermont does not become multiculturally divided, but instead grows stronger because we can all understand one another through a common language. That's my opener, folks. And, we welcome people from other countries. We always have. Our grandparents, our great-grandparents came here from other nations, but they quickly focused on learning the language so that they could get employment and become self-sufficient and become a part of us instead of something off to the side. So anyway, with that, I'm eager to introduce my guest. His name is Mike Lannon. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
How are you, Linda?
I'm
feedback.
Yes, it's great to have you here, and I always appreciate how long you have to drive to get here. You definitely just make me feel proud.
Your show is important, so the voice of your show is very important, so it's worth the drive.
Well, you're very sweet to say so. Thank you. And I know, and I have so much respect for you. You're an educator. You're a unique educator. You are.
Yeah, I'm old.
Well, that may be a good thing because you have a frame of reference that some of the younger teachers probably don't have. And I know I grew up in different times, wonderful times. I'd go back to those times in a minute because families were strong, children were taught work ethic and accountability and manners, respect, and they knew that in the classroom there was no goofing off. You were there to work and learn.
That's the way it's supposed to still be.
I know.
Yeah.
Supposed to is the key word.
Well, I'm starting my 53rd year.
My gosh.
Yeah, so I have a lot of teachers that are young that come down and visit my room. So
I bet you do because
and the superintendent of the district sends people to see me, so they know. So
that must make you feel proud.
I've been there. I know. I've seen a lot.
Change.
Yep. Well, it really hasn't changed that much. We still have to learn how to read, write, and do arithmetic.
And learn U.S. history.
That would be a part of reading and writing, but we don't do that so much anymore.
I remember such a long period of time when I was in school many moons ago, we focused so much on proper English, how to construct a sentence, the noun, the verb, the adjective, the adverb, you name it, paragraphs, and it's important to learn those things.
One of the most important essential functions, they call it 21st century skills today, but one of the most important essential functions is to be able to clearly and effectively communicate. And with the computer today, it's got to be with few characters, but it's got to be coherent, and that means you're going to have to know how to write. You just have to. So, if you use Twitter, I think that's 140 characters. It might be a few more than that, but it's a very small number of things that you can do with words. So
I didn't know. I've never done that.
Well, it's important because the children of the AI age, meaning artificial intelligence age, which we're into right now, are going to be doing things much more differently than what we did. But it's still going to be, you have to be able to read, you have to be able to write, and you have to be able to do arithmetic.
If you want to apply for a job and they ask you to write a letter explaining who you are and so forth, how you construct that letter, how you put it together is important to who you are and what you know and how you present yourself.
When I've sat in on teacher interviews, I've actually put my thumb on papers that the teacher sent in with misspelled words. They didn't even they did not get past my desk.
Good.
It was, and there would be other people sitting there that were, well, that's only one misspelled word. That's right. You're asking to join a profession that you're going to teach writing, and you're presenting a paper to me that I don't know who you are, but you're presenting a paper, and your communication is not clear and effective because it's a misspelled word. No. Next.
Sorry. I understand that. It's having expectations. If the teacher doesn't get it right, then how are they going to teach it correctly to the children?
If you're a parent watching and you're wondering about the teacher, next time you have a parent conference, if it's not learner led, then the next thing you want to do is say, okay, what's the latest thing you've been reading? Teacher may say nothing. What's the latest thing you've been writing? And what's your computational thinking right now? And if you get 0, 0, 0 for answers, you better get to a board and find a new teacher, because they're not doing what's necessary to be continually lifelong learners. So if you're a lifelong learner, you're going to teach kids. That's the one profession that you've got to stay up on top of all the time.
What are the expectations
Of a teacher?
Yes.
Well, that's a great question. It would take us about 20 hours to answer, but a lot of teachers come to the they've had their teacher education course, and they bring to the classroom that which they learned as they grew up in the world of education. So if they had great teachers, they might be a good teacher. If they really work at it hard for 5 years, from the time they graduate from college, 5 years, and they work really hard at it, they're going to be a pretty decent teacher at the end of 5 years. You're not going to be this is the only profession in the world where you're expected to walk into your classroom and be the know-it-all. If you're a doctor, you don't walk in and begin. A lawyer doesn't do that. A plumber doesn't do that. Carpenters don't do that. I don't know of any other profession in the world where you walk in and you're instantly the expert.
Well,
no, you're not. You need a mentor. You need someone that's going to help you become a really good professional, and that doesn't happen. Very seldom does that happen.
So they're on their own?
You're pretty much on your own. You're in your own silo.
So,
you shut your door and you do your thing.
What do the school boards expect? Who has the expectations?
Well,
Parents?
the school board does have some expectations, generally speaking, but you got to remember, most of the people that are sitting on school boards are citizen board members. They don't really have a whole lot of information on how education works. I mean, the mind, the brain, and the education, how does that all work? Or how does the mind even absorb information? How do you become knowledgeable? How do you understand that knowledge and make use of it? And how do you become wise? All those things that boards don't necessarily know. You hire a superintendent that you hope will have that ability, but there's superintendents that have never taught in a classroom. They've been in school, and they got their undergraduate degree in education, then they got their master's degree, and then they got their doctorate, and all of a sudden they're a superintendent. They've never been in a classroom. Now, that's not a lot of superintendents, but there are some out there that's the way they've done it. So
they haven't been through
No, they haven't. They've never been in a classroom. So what they're telling the board is textbook stuff that may or may not work. So.
Well, the loss is for the students and the society.
We just finished the international testing scores, and we came up a bit. We went from 35th in the world to 30th in the world since 2015. That's not a very good record for the United States of America to be 30th in math. I'm not sure where we finished in reading. I just know where we finished in math. That's what I teach. I teach math and science. I've taught all the grades. I've taught all the subject, but right now I'm teaching project-based learning, math and science.
So do you teach them multiplication, division?
Oh, yeah. Conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, strategic competency, adaptive reasoning, and productive disposition are the 5 domains that I work in. They got to be able to do all 5 of those things. To be a mathematician, you've got to be able to work in those 5 areas.
Now, do you teach them, like if I were one of the students, you would be teaching me one-on-one, not sending me to a computer?
I might send you to a computer depending upon what needs you might have, but I would have assessed that already, and I would know what you need. You and I would have had at least one solid 20-minute conference, Miss Kirker.
Well, we didn't have computers in my day,
and so pencil and paper and a brain.
Your brain.
Yep.
And I really resist. I'm sure that there's some merit to using a computer at times, but basically, learning is about using your brain.
Well, in mathematics, and then we can go off to another subject if you want, because we could spend the entire time here.
Okay.
In mathematics, you've got, there's only 2 things you can do in math. You can either compose a number or you decompose a number. That's it. So if you can in the Hindu, English, Arabic number system, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you know what that means, you know what those items are, you know how to set that up, you know how the place value system works, and you then learn to either add or multiply or subtract and divide. Once you understand those concepts, as far as I'm concerned, go ahead and use a computer. I'd like to be like they are in Britain right now. Great Britain, they've got 10-year-olds, that's fifth graders, learning calculus.
No.
Yeah, so we're way behind.
So
in the Asian nations, they're doing all kinds of stuff. They're inventing math. So you want to get children computationally thinking as quickly as possible. So most kids in the future are not going to ever use paper and pencil. They're going to use a calculator. They do now. I don't go to the grocery store and ever do it in my head anymore. My wife does because she just likes doing it. I use a calculator. It's right there in my pocket. Why would I make a mistake? Why not use the calculator? That's what kids are going to use, because we're asking them to do much more advanced things. I mean, you heard my 5 domains get ticked off. I mean, you and I grew up procedural fluency. 9 times 9 is 81. 12 times 12 is 144. We learned all those procedural fluencies. We probably can't sit and tell you how it all works conceptually. But to advance yourself in math, you have to be able to conceptually understand that stuff.
yes.
So if you don't have strategic competence, you get to a problem and you say, well I don't know what to do.
Well,
And that's where we're weakest in this country. We don't problem solve. We're not mathematically sound in problem solving.
Well, I don't know how the country can be strong when our youth are not coherent and capable in mathematics and, well, English and all the other.
Well, to go to the political end of things, Khrushchev was the
Yeah.
Khrushchev was the little buddy that left after Stalin died. Khrushchev said that he was going to take America down, and he would do it through the educational system.
Mm-hmm.
Khrushchev said that we were in the top 5 in the world. So we've produced a generation after generation of children that don't do so well. Now, are there exceptions? Absolutely. We have still one of the greatest innovative countries in the world. We have that freedom to think and build the next Apple company, the next Microsoft, wherever you want to look at. However, the majority of children are being left behind. And that's even after having this big thing about no child left behind, the majority of children are being left behind. You have tons of children in the inner cities, all run by Democrats, by the way, that are failing miserably. I believe New York City did not have one single minority group, Black or Latino, pass the Regent last year.
Oh my!
So it's a disaster.
It is a disaster, and it's an indicator of the future of the country. We have to have really smart young people who are for whom we have high expectations. And I mean, how much homework do they get?
None. A lot of kids don't have homework anymore. Well, there's a lot of research out there that indicates that homework isn't really that good. I don't know.
Well, I used to have a lot of it.
I give home lessons. I have a lot of kids that send me stuff that they're interested in doing. Not what I'm interested in doing, but it pretty much ties to what we're doing usually.
But they're not the teacher, and they don't set the expectations.
That's yes and no. In order to engage children, you really need to have them involved. You need that conference that I just talked about. You need the teacher. There's no question about it.
Is there anything parents can do?
Oh, they certainly can. Parents, it's tough because when I was a kid growing up, my mom was home. When I'd walk through the door, there was a brownie and a glass of milk, or there was something going on, with mom. She was home. That's not true today. We have a lot of single moms. We have a lot of single dads. We have both parents working. They come home, they're exhausted. I have children that during this pandemic, I had one little girl that was contacting me at 1 a.m. That's when she had the computer available and the quiet house. And I had a young man that was at 10 o'clock at night. So I had 2 children that at 10 years of age should have been in bed. But no, they were up doing their homework. They were doing their schoolwork, which the pandemic forced.
I guess what I was maybe driving at was parental expectations. For instance, yes, my mom worked, but when I came home, if I had homework, I got myself a little snack, and then I sat at the dining room table and I did my homework. I didn't need a parent there for me to do my homework.
Well, you were, there's still children like that. There's still learners that are like that still. I mean, but there's also those who don't do that, that do need a parent that's going to say, sit down and do your homework.
Well, that's ingrained from a young age.
That's all part of that parenting skill and most parents want the best for their children. That has not changed that much over time. I've been at it for a long, long time. Parents still want their children to have opportunity.
Sure.
They still want them to be as smart as possible. A lot of parents in rural Vermont communities, a lot of parents don't read past the 4th or 5th grade level, which is nationally. A lot of parents can't do math. They can do the calculator. And a lot of parents aren't great writers. So the child coming home and saying, can you help me with this, is very often the one that's teaching the mom or dad. So it's a bit of a problem, that's the destruction of the American school system has been ongoing now for a long, long time. I'm going to say 50 some odd years. I could see it when I first started coming into the school system.
I had an idea at one point. Well, I have a lot of ideas. But, it probably wouldn't work. Maybe it's idealistic. But if there were let's say in Vermont, or even start with one community, all right? And when a family has a child who's 2 or 3 years old, there's a program for parents about preparing your child for school. And so there's, expectations, work ethic, teaching the children that sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do because it's in your own best interest to do so. For parents to understand that when your child comes into school, your child needs to pay attention, not disrupt the class, do their work. And so they need to be trained before they come into school. And that's the job of the parents.
Well, you'd have to mandate that. I mean, they've already mandated preschool in the state of Vermont and most of the other states in the nation. I'm not sure how well that's going to work. Let's see if that's going to actually help children. But that's the government taking over, which I'm opposed to. That's the government taking over parenting. And you just made a suggestion, tongue-in-cheek, I hope, because if I'm a parent, I don't want the state telling me how to raise my child. It's tough enough right now that they're telling me how to raise my child.
And I would say to you, if you're the parent, and I'm running the program, which I wouldn't want to do, I'm sure that you want your child to excel in school and really do well.
No.
No, you don't.
No, I'll be the.
You're the devil's advocate.
No, not necessarily. I just want my child to be happy.
Oh, and do you think your child is going to be happy when he has to stay after school to do homework?
My child's not staying after school.
Oh, really?
Really?
Okay.
And I'll go to the board on that. No, my child's not staying after school. And when your child isn't qualified
to move on to the next grade with his classmates and his friends?
That's not true, because every child moves on.
They do?
No child gets held back. No child gets held back for failing a grade. Linda.
I can't stand it.
Move on. You don't want to be talking to me about education.
Wait a minute. What happened to expectations?
The expectation is the child does the very best that they possibly can.
Oh, really? And who's determining that?
Well, the teacher and the child.
Okay.
The parent,
Well, you and I could have.
you do not see a lot of parents involved. They're not.
No, they need to be involved at home.
How are you going to get that to happen?
That's a very good question that I don't have a good answer
As I tell
to.
my wife, nothing's impossible to the man or woman who doesn't have to do it themselves.
Well, the only thing that can be done really is to explain to the parents that if your child fails through school because he or she hasn't been taught that you have to invest yourself in the process, then when they're of high school age and their friends are doing this and that and they can't, and then they graduate from high school, so to speak, at least they get through, and they can't find employment because they're not prepared, how happy are they going to be?
Well, I got lots of answer for that. But
Okay.
I'm going to just say, I'm just going to say
We'll
one
move
thing.
on.
As a teacher, teachers have got to understand that they have these children for 7 to 7.5 hours a day for 177 to 175 to 177 days a year. And they best be stepping up and doing the very best they can to make these children successful while they have them. That's what a teacher's profession is all about. So for a child to not be able to answer the call to success. In all the years I've been in school, I've never met a child that didn't want to learn. Never. All the years.
Yeah, but you make it interesting and fun for them to learn.
All teachers should be that way.
I know that.
So that becomes a problem for the administration. That doesn't mean that I've had successes with every single child, but I make sure that they leave the classroom having had a good year.
Well, maybe you could be the head of education.
No, thank you very much. Mr. French can stay right there. I know Mr. French, he worked very hard, and it's not, all those jobs are thankless jobs. You get paid, but you always got people that are saying, do it this way, do it that way. Everybody's a Monday morning quarterback. And of all the professions we're just talking about, this is the one profession that everybody knows how to do. Everybody knows. No, you don't. I always ask, okay, what's the last thing you just read about education? What did you just write about education? What did you just do for computational thinking? Those are all part of education. Mm-hmm. And how does that mind work? How does the mind actually learn? So that we can make it faster for the kid that's sitting there and says, I don't want to do this. I'm bored. I'd rather be outside building a tree house. I'd rather be digging, plowing the field. I mean, we're only 100 years away from having brought children in from the farm. So, and now we're moving even faster because we're moving away from the industrial school to a computer school. I mean, these schools are going to come to an end, not in our lifetime, but it's coming fast. Now, this COVID, as you were just saying, Wuhan virus, there are going to be some significant outcomes. We're managing faster than ever how to have online classrooms. And a lot of kids that are junior high and above are going to learn how to be good learners on an online school system. That's going to be great for taxpayers because we don't need those schools.
Oh, really? Oh, and you think that the union is going to allow that?
The union's not going to like it, but parents are going to say, I just soon have Johnny at home. I mean, they're saying it right now. You watch the number of children that don't come back to school. They're going to be homeschooled.
Oh, I know.
To see. I haven't. The state of Vermont has not been able to give out the numbers yet, but I know I've lost kids for coming out. I got my list today, and I've lost kids. They're not coming back. Now, will they come back once COVID's out? I don't know, because if they become very successful at homeschool, why would they come back? I can do it. I can do homeschool in 2 hours. I can do it in 3 hours. If I read, if I write, and do my arithmetic, that's 3 hours versus 7.5 hours.
And who's checking it?
Well,
to make sure that you do it right.
You can't just homeschool in the state of Vermont. You have to be approved. You have to have some kind of a paid for or approved curriculum. So mom and dad are going to check. And most of these kids that are going to go homeschooling, they're not coming from families that are poverty. They're coming from the families that have some money. So you're going to change the school structure. it's going to be very interesting. So hey,
It's going to be one of those changes that occurs.
we'll see what happens. I don't know. I think we were, if you think about it, schools were originally built just like factories. We were a production shop, and you'd get off the bus, which is the transportation into the school. Buses are relatively new, but you'd come into the school, you'd be greeted by the owner, called the principal. He would send you down to the foreman, called the teacher, and you'd sit at your machine, called the desk. And everybody at a bell would begin, and on another bell they would stop, and on above the bell they'd go to lunch. So what we were doing is we were actually training children to come from the farm, come to the school, and become production workers, and that's what we did. Now that's gone. We're not going to build schools like that anymore. And the industrial way of doing education is out the window. And kids are smart today. I mean, I thought I was smart, but kids are really, really smart today. You know, and yes, their test scores don't reflect it.
Well, because they're being tested on things that they haven't bothered to learn about.
That's a piece of the problem. But kids are inventing things that you and I don't even have a clue about.
Technology, and yes,
just unbelievable.
And
when I walk into my classroom today, and I have done this now for, it's got to be almost 5 years, maybe longer. I don't set up any of my equipment. I take my smartest kid in the room and say, that's your job for the year. Set me up, take care of everything. They take care of the room. They run it all.
So you're giving them responsibility.
They have responsibility. And I do, like we were talking about civics. The first day of school, I teach them one rule. Don't bring an embarrassment back to this doorway, or you feel the wrath of Lannon. That's me. They then elect a governor. They elect a judge, and they elect a legislator. And
you don't have to get that close, but
so so they run the classroom. That's how they get engaged. And so if they have a problem, they go to the governor, and the governor brings it to me. And if there's a violation of their 5 rules, I never allow more than 5 rules. 5 rules, they can remember them. If they have a violation of that 5 rules, they bring the kid to court.
So you set guidelines and expectations. You give them responsibility, and I would love to be in your class.
I think most kids want to be in my class.
I bet they do, because you make it interesting.
Keep it moving. That's the name of the game.
They're not bored.
They're not bored.
And okay, so you want to move on to another topic?
Oh, yeah, because we're going to talk education until we're blue in the face. And it's a big subject, and it's not going to be instantly taken care of in an hour. I mean, I've been at it for 53 years. Guys are starting my 53rd year, and I can tell you right now, I don't have all the answers.
Well, no, it's very expansive.
Yep.
But God bless you for what you do, because I know you're exceptional. And as you said, other teachers come in to see what you're doing. I have a friend whose daughter is a teacher, and she teaches 5th grade, and she gets so many wonderful results with her students that the superintendent of schools came to her and said, "What are you doing?" And I'm sure the same thing happens with you.
5th grade is a great grade because they're 9, 10, or 11 years of age by the time. Some come in at 9 and some are 10 already, and they're 11 when they leave, 10 or 11 when they leave the grade. But that's the one grade where they're making the decision on whether or not they're going to continue to be educated. Their minds are still curious. They haven't had their creative minds completely destroyed yet. The smartest a kid is ever is at kindergarten. Ah, boy. They are smart as whips at kindergarten. I go down to visit the kindergarten once a week. I go to preschool once in a while now and get on the floor and play with blocks. I want to see what the kids are doing.
Sure.
So to end that conversation, I was just telling you before the show began, I just had a wonderful dedication to a yearbook done by a 6th grader.
Oh, yes.
Who wrote a wonderful dedication page, and I'll send it up to you. But it's a humbling experience to watch a child write about you and say, this is how you've impacted all of the class.
What a gift.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Well-earned gift. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. And last year they had me the guest speaker for the graduation. So all through my career, I've had those kinds of things happen.
Well, because you work hard at it, you understand how the children's minds work, you know your stuff, and you make it fun to learn.
I work at it all the
You
time.
challenge
so, yeah.
them. Yeah, good for
Okay,
you.
on to the next.
Well, I wish we could clone you,
Yeah,
Mike.
no, I don't.
Oh, let's see here. Do you want to speak at all to the debt in Vermont, or how we have One Care Vermont, where government has taken over control of our healthcare single-payer system, and
Well,
hospitals are struggling?
It's very, very easy to see what's happened in Vermont is really what Bernie has pushed out to the nation now. And I mean, this is a socialistic state, and we're becoming more and more that way. The old traditional Vermonter who sold his farm because dairy farming wasn't productive. That's an entire different history, the difference between cows and how things happen. But anyway, Vermont got sold, and it's become more and more of a socialistic state, and that's going to become a problem. We are so far in debt. You and I aren't going to have to pay for it, but boys and girls, you better have a great education, because if you're going to live in Vermont, it's going to cost you a fortune.
Well, they may just move out.
Well, that's what they're doing. We don't talk about it very often, but the fastest exiting product in Vermont is under 45, and they're humans. They're leaving this state in droves. I don't know how the $10,000 payment has worked, but I would say not very well. But there's no opportunity in this state, and we've driven business right out of this state. And so some people want that to happen. So great, okay. It'll come to the point where it's absolutely dirt poor. And just look at every single socialistic, democratic socialism, whatever you want to call it. Listen to a guy today that is a product from fleeing Cuba. Successful businessman here in America that came here when he was 13. Talk about stop calling it socialism. Call it what it is. It's communism.
Yes, it is. Where government controls everything.
Government controls everything.
Your schools, your health care, your job, you name it, and they control it.
Aristotle said you have to have a base. I've said this before at this show. Aristotle said that you had to have a base that was spiritual. He called it the soul, the ethos. And then you had to have an intellectual base, and you had to have a body. And Jesus said you had to have, you had to love the Lord thy God with your whole body, mind, soul, and mind, body, and soul. Heart. You had to have it. Jesus said you have to have your heart, mind, body, and soul. What are they talking about? Well, they're talking about in socialism, that spiritual side is the worship of the God called the government. And I found it very interesting last week that 3 times in the Democratic convention that they dropped from the Pledge of Allegiance under God. That's a message.
They never said it.
Never said it. Dropped it.
What happened to the United States of America and the wonderful pledge to our American flag, which is the standard of our nation?
In my classroom, you say it at 8 o'clock in the morning, period. And I don't do it. I have a child that stands up at 8 o'clock. I don't care what's going on in that room. He or she, whoever they've picked from their government, they stand up right there at 8 o'clock. The students select who's going to do that all year long. They stand up, and I don't care what's happening. Everybody stops. And then once that person begins to say, I pledge allegiance, everybody stands, everybody looks at the flag, everybody does the salute. And there's not... You don't have to do anything but mouth the words or whatever. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. Whether you like it or not, you do it.
God bless you.
It's the way I run the class. And it's not me. The kids have already decided. I manipulate it, but they've decided that that's the way it's going to be.
That's the routine.
That's the routine.
Just like when I was in school, except that in addition to that, we said the Lord's Prayer every day.
Yep.
in the classroom.
Yep, so
But
did
we
I.
have too many entities and forces and anti-America people and George Soros and
We have
so
got
many
to
others.
we have got to be watchful. Jefferson said to be watchful. All of the founding fathers said you have to be watchful. Socialism was around when they were around. So, I mean,
That's why-
not the way it is today, but I mean, it's the same thing, is that the government should be big and control all man's lives. Well, this country was formed on just the opposite of that. Under God, we will form a nation of men trying to form a government by men. It's the most successful government ever created in the world under God by men. And
of the people, by the people, for the people.
so intellectually, we've talked about that at length tonight. Intellectually, if I'm going with Aristotle, the government has to control the education. And if I control the education, I control your mind and what you're willing to
And the
and able
future.
to learn. Oh, I control it all. And then physically, I have to make sure that I take care of your health care. And so I mean, that's the physical side of things. So therefore, I have to eliminate those in my society who are pro-life, because the government is going to be pro-death. And what do I mean by that? Well, we already know that the abortions are here, but it's coming, and we see it all the time. And that is euthanasia, which is the taking down of the old folks. I found it very interesting that over in New York State, the Democratic governor over there decided that for whatever reason, he would take the people that had COVID-19, Wuhan virus, and send them back into the nursing homes. Well, that state has the largest number of deaths. Well, why? He put them in with the sick and dying population. Well, that's one of the most expensive, let's not be a cynic here, but that's one of the most expensive healthcare issues in the state of New York, taking care of old people. Well, if I get rid of 72,000 of them, I've just reduced that budget. People, you think, well, that people don't think that way. If I can think it that way, believe you me, others can. I always said, if a person can sit like me and think these thoughts, others can too, and they can implement them perhaps.
There are many people trying to bring down the United States of America. This country is a threat because of the founders and the documents they created, they empowered we the people, the individuals.
I found it very interesting. In 2016, the number of elites on the West Coast and the number of elites on the East Coast who said that if Donald Trump ever got elected, they were leaving the country.
Good
They're
riddance.
still here. What happened? I mean, that's the voice of nonsense. Nobody's going to leave. Where are they going to go to? Alvarez said that if we lose this country, where else are we going? Where else is there to go? And he's absolutely right. If we lose this country, where else do we go? We can move right now, like from Vermont, you can pick up and go. But if you lose the country, you go where I tell you to go.
Oh, yeah. The government is the big daddy in all areas of your life. Whether it's your education or your health care or the job, in some of these countries like China and maybe Russia too, the government may educate you, but they also determine where you're going to work, what kind of work you're going to do, okay? You're not free to make those decisions.
Soviet Union, I don't know if it's still true today, but the Soviet Union had a test at 10 years of age. That was 5th grade. If you didn't pass, you were gone. You went to work. If you didn't pass that test, you left their school system and you went to the factory or the farm or wherever else they had going on. So
there are a lot of forces at work. And unfortunately, Bernie Sanders is one of them. He's a socialist through and through, and he manages to convince people, the socialists, you're going to have free college, and we're going to pay off your college loans, and you're going to have free health care, and all of these freebies that take away all your rights and your freedom.
it's very interesting because, Bernie's definitely a socialist / communist. I mean, think of where he went on his honeymoon. It wasn't Nevada.
Russia.
So Fidel Castro, who's in our hemisphere when he was alive, was very, very smooth-tongued. He was articulate, and people swallowed his Kool-Aid hook, line, and sinker. And the minute he became, through the guerrilla warfare, the minute they became in power, he took all the guns back, took them all away, and confiscated all the land. So it all became government land. Now, in Venezuela, they had a socialist democratic revolution by the ballot box, and they are poverty-stricken today. They're gone. It's in the toilet. Well, what's happening in Venezuela and what happened in Cuba is exactly what people are talking about today. The anarchy in the streets, the riots in the democratic cities right now. That's how they all began in the Soviet Union. That's how it began in Portugal in 1910. Most people don't realize that Lannon, the Germans put Lannon on a train, a dark train, all the windows closed and shaded, and they smuggled him into Russia to bring to the Russian people the Marxist Communist Manifesto. Mm-hmm. They wanted to take Russia down by putting Lannon there. And boy, did he start, and he did it.
Well, you mentioned guns. We have people trying to disarm American citizens who have a constitutional right, Second Amendment right, to keep and bear arms. Yep. But even in this state, we have people trying to disarm the citizens, and the founders of this country knew that ultimately, if we were not armed, we would not be able to protect ourselves against a government.
That's right. That was one of the major reasons why the Second Amendment was the Second Amendment. We had to protect ourselves, and they knew that. One of the reasons the Japanese refused to attack the United States on the West Coast was the fact that they feared that every American was armed.
Absolutely.
To go west. But AOC and the Democratic Party right now has threatened to take all our guns.
Oh yeah.
And that's the plan, is to take them all. So we have to be very, very careful and cautious, because how are they planning to do that? Well, you have to do that by forcing some form of a police state that goes to your house and takes them.
Well, look what's happening with policing.
Cuba and, let's see, Venezuela. Let's defund our regular police force and put together a citizens police force. That's what they did in Cuba, and that's what they did in Venezuela. Well, you know where the Venezuelan police force came from?
Where? Their
prison system. They emptied the prisons, made them all the citizen police force.
Wow.
So, we're doing that in the United States right now. We're letting out all of these criminals. We're allowing them out on the streets.
Obama let out
no kidding.
Umpteen all over the country. Just about emptied out our prisons and
this
put
is how crazy it's gotten
on the streets.
They broke into a gated community here back a month ago.
Here?
Somewhere in the United States.
Oh, okay.
And the couple that was first on the street, McCloskey's, they were yelling. It's all on tape. We're going to rape you. We're going to burn your house down. We're going to live in that room. They were threatening them, so they came out with guns. Now the McCloskey's have been charged with a felony, and the rioters who broke down the private gate. The woman with the bullhorn is running for the 6th district in Missouri and will probably be elected. And nobody in that riotous group that was threatening to hurt the McCloskeys got charged with anything. This is a flipped up, upside down country.
Absolutely.
This is crazy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely crazy.
Step by step by step.
The frog in the hot pan.
You see with education, you see it with healthcare, you see it with law enforcement, and so many other aspects of our society.
You missed one important point.
Lay it on me.
They're destroying, bit by bit, the religious foundation of the country.
Yes.
And I can destroy the family as soon as I have them not getting the moral value from the pulpit. And as soon as that happens, that's the first place I go. And you see a massive exodus in New England, for sure, of people leaving the church. And all churches. And it's like,
they've even closed the churches, wouldn't even let people because of
no kidding.
This virus.
We can riot in the streets by the thousands, but we can't have more than 50 people in a church.
What I want to know is,
love it.
These rioters who are destroying private businesses and public buildings and historic statues and all kinds of things. They went to a car dealership and blew up the cars.
Yeah, Oshkosh last night.
What does that accomplish?
Nothing.
They're getting out a message. That's what they're doing. They're getting out a message of fear.
Well, they're not going to win. They're not going to win.
Okay, but what's going to happen? When and how is somebody going to stand up? These Democrat governors and mayors.
That's up to the voters.
That's where all this is happening.
If they get sick to death of it, maybe they'll stop it. But from my perspective, this is a crucial election coming up right now. Trump has got to be reelected, whether you like the guy or not. He is the only person that's standing in the doorway to prevent the downfall of the country.
I agree.
They can yell and scream all they want about the fact that they don't like him and he's doing this and that. Look, this guy's done more in the first 3 years than Mr. Biden did in 47 in the swamp down there. And it is a swamp. It's a disgusting mess. And it's corrupt, both sides, both Republican, independent, and Democrat. It's corrupt. You go down there and you come back a multimillionaire. Oh, gee, the 3 guys here in the state of Vermont, they're all millionaires. They didn't go down there as millionaires, but they are today.
54 years for
Leahy.
Yeah, we
kidding.
need term limits for Congress, and I think there's a bill to that effect, but these people are never going to sign on to it because then they won't get all their freebies.
It's like Mr. Trump said to the blacks, what have you got to lose? And in the state of Vermont, what have they done for us? You got 2 senators, been there forever, and you got a congressman that's been there forever too now. I mean,
30-some years, I think, yeah.
And they're all aged. Okay, so what have you got to lose? Put someone in there that's brand new with new thoughts. Maybe, just maybe, Vermont would be able to have something going on other than exodus by its 45 years and under age group. That's a problem. Maybe we could get out of our pension debt that nobody ever wants to talk about. We have a huge debt in this country, in this state. And
I know, $4.5 billion, I think it is.
now add that on top of that, the pension.
Well, that is the pension.
4.5 billion?
Yeah, billion.
Okay, so now add on to that the actual deficit of the state.
Oh, I know.
So it's not 4.5 billion, it's closer to 10 billion.
Government has to stick to its defined role.
Yeah,
and not,
limited.
Exactly. Limited government and empowered people.
Yeah, well, it's so easy for people to just give it up. And that's a major, major problem. And I mean, we talked about that just before the show began. When do kids learn civics? Well, I teach civics. In other words, how the government's supposed to work. You want to be a dictator? I could be in the classroom and be a dictator. A lot of teachers are dictators. That's what we're teaching kids. We're teaching kids socialism. No, I don't teach that at all. No. Stand on your own 2 feet and become somebody.
There's another thing about socialism. There are a lot of bad things about socialism, but one is something like TCI in Vermont, the Transportation Climate Initiative, and the Global Warming Solutions Act, GWSA, supported, generally speaking, by the Democrats, maybe even a few Republicans, I don't know for sure. But these are things that are going to control your car, the kind of vehicle that you can buy. Do you know that we, the taxpayers, are subsidizing, if you want to buy an electric car, we, the people, are subsidizing that purchase, I think, and let me know if I'm wrong, but I think it's $5,000 that you get toward buying your electric car, and the taxpayers are paying for that. But the other thing about these Global Warming Solutions Act, first of all, I don't see global warming and climate change. I think especially in Vermont, all right, we have the lowest or the second lowest carbon footprint in the nation. We have all these green trees that absorb whatever carbon that we emit. And there's no reason for Vermont to be getting into these things except to one more way to control the people and our private property. What kind of appliances you'll be forced to buy. Builders won't be able to build a home unless it has this kind of insulation and that kind of windows. And where goes your private choice to make a decision for your own life, or for a builder to work with you and say, okay, this is what you want, this is what we'll do?
You're talking specifically about big government.
Yes.
And big government is, the biggest government is communism. They take it all over. And you're talking about this state is already there. We don't call this a communist state, but it's a socialist state. It is a socialist state.
We need to elect more Republicans, people who believe in.
How many Republicans are left down there in the Montpelier?
30 some in the House out of 100.
There's 30 in the House?
Wait, 150?
In the Senate, I think there's only 6.
Yeah, in the Senate. I think there's...
You can't run a government that way, because once they have complete control, they have complete control. And then they get away with what they want.
Unless the people rise up and say enough.
That's not going to happen until something really bad happens, and it's going to be too late.
It is happening.
When they rose up in the Soviet Union, they got shot. 45 million of them. Stalin killed 45 million. How many Mao killed?
They want to take your guns away.
Mao killed something like 165 million.
Yeah, Mao.
Yeah, Mao.
Yeah.
All these people that think this is great, people don't read history. They don't, you talked about that. People don't read history. They don't have any clue what's going on. I talk about this all the time. It's putting the frog in the pot and putting the heat on at a low temperature. By the time the frog wants to jump out, he can't. He can't jump out because his legs won't.
And that's what's happening.
That's exactly what's happening.
So, folks, the Transportation Climate Initiative is a lot of malarkey. The Global Warming Solutions Act is another malarkey. It's nonsense. It's not necessary in Vermont. And
it's not provable science.
That's right.
And by provable science, it means that the people that are doing the science are not being paid for the answer. And if I'm being given a multi-million-dollar grant by Joe Soros or whoever is whoever's giving me the grant money, I'm going to have to come back with an answer that continues that money.
Well, the people who are behind these, I believe, are people who have businesses that want to capitalize on being able to make a lot of money by forcing people to change the way they live their lives, their homes, their cars, their electric appliances, or whatever it might be, the kind of heating source you can have, your fireplace, whatever it might be, taking away personal freedom.
People don't, I wish people would just look at the geological history of the state of Vermont. When at one time the state of Vermont was tropical. Okay, what happened? Did we cause that? I don't think so.
1 minute.
We have 1 minute left. Well, isn't that great? Well, that's not going to be enough time to talk about the geological changes.
Well, you'll have to come back.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about education.
Okay, we'll cut that one off next time. But
no, that's an important subject. You just can't talk about education in an hour.
No, but it's so critically important to the future of the individuals and the nation.
The future of our children, boys, at stake.
And the country.
And even in this election right now, people don't talk about that. They talk about the future of the nation. just talk about the future of
A
education.
lot gets left out.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for who you are and for
Thank
being
you for
willing
inviting me again.
to come up here from Rutland and keep up the great work with the children. They're blessed to have you in the classroom, and please don't forget to send me that.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Say
you,
hi
Linda.
to Paula.
I will.
And folks, thanks for tuning in. I know we talked about a lot of things that you might call negative, but they have to be said. We all need to know about them. Thanks for watching. Good night.